Now we're getting somewhere. When it becomes an absolute amorphous podcast where the Father and Son don't even know because the Spirit is so abundant and all immersive that we don't even know who's Moses, who's the Pharaoh, who's Jesus, who's the serpent. Now we're getting somewhere, baby. That the self is amorphous. The self is an event. It is not in stasis. The self will be discovered and will evolve in relationship. Then indeed, we do lend some credence to those who say these two categories of maleness and femaleness, or man and woman, do not suit me. Now, no doubt these ideas, like all ideas, race, distinction, nationality, commerce, have been lent further charge by, I would say, powerful sets that seek to govern and control consciousness itself, that see that as the ultimate terrain, that require, for the perpetuation of their control, the continual flinging of rocks into that pool to prevent something glorious coalescing there, some new unity. And what I would offer is this, that surely the synthesis that we're requiring out of this thesis-antithesis war that we're plainly still in is the ability to acknowledge that there must be some kind of fluidity. There must be some kind of freedom. There must be some kind of acceptance that tradition cannot become a rod to steer, control, or prod others. That our religious faith, that our spirituality, that our morality and our ethics must be for the marshalling of our own instincts and designs and desire for power. And I feel that perhaps the next marker of our progression might be when we can say, well, what is it that is of value in these ideas that are emerging out of post-structuralism? The sort of this willingness to cast out even nature. Even the body I'm born in isn't me. Nature itself isn't real. To hell with the sun. To hell with Jesus. To hell even with my own chromosomes. Neither the crucifix or the why are of value in the final analysis. And because I've lived there a while, because I've lived continually in indulgence, because I have been so many times humbled and my humbling continues yet, what it leaves me with is that there is something, obviously there is something in what you have brought into our culture that people were looking for and needed, and I value it and I appreciate it. That's why I apologize when I'm late. Tidy your room, man. Arrive on time. Stand up straight. But there is also something that I am, before I was an Ouroboros consuming my own self, and now I am more porous, looking for ways to be open to solution. And I feel there is something we have to deliver. I think that there is something that we have to deliver, and I think the fissures and fractures are emerging now. The possibility exists now for even, say, your most vehement and vocal detractors to recognize in you what you have brought to the conversation that is true, and for us to recognize what they have been saying that is accurate, that is correct, that is worthy of being heard. And I would say that sort of if you just casually, maybe out of habit, use pride as the example, that instead of the many heterosexual and normative ways that people are equally indulgent and sort of lost and adrift, and I know those worlds because I've lived there, then I think that we're not affording ourselves a pathway through this that would be beneficial. What fascinates me also, because I feel it might be practical, for surely as a theology evolves from the Old Testament into the New Testament, is there a sense, without yielding what territory might be inferred to Islam here, if we were to continue the trajectory to the insisted final prophet, that what we are offered in Acts, for example, in the immediate era after Christ's death and resurrection is that the kind of divinity endowed by the second covenant, God's reversal, inversion and return on Abraham's sacrifice, might become not ubiquitous, but at least accessible to many, that we will perform greater feats than he, that you, my apostles, will perform greater feats, that as he has sent me as his apostle, I send you as my apostles. This is a very sort of, and admittedly it's 2,000 years old, but a very sort of a vibrant call to arms, an urgent sense that, oh my God, we're living in an atrophying and dying ideology. We must become alive with Christ. We must change the world. And even the accounts that are given in there are accounts of people jailed and on trial, that even though it is literally biblical, they're not. It's very distinct from the Old Testament with its locusts and its deserts and its tribes and its manna. Now it sort of feels overtly and literally political. So what I'm saying is that somehow, like, between these two sets of books, and I don't know how arbitrary that taxonomy is even, Jordan, obviously it must be an area of your expertise by now, having sort of watched the incredible content you've generated around it. Has there been a significant reversal of charge? And what is that charge? How are we endowed with that charge now? At the point when you have Richard Dawkins saying, I am culturally Christian, are people starting to recognize that there is that this is not just a remnant ideology, this is a living thing that has been discarded. The religion that I am interested in is not a precursor and a parallel to psychotherapy. It is a precursor and parallel to quantum physics, helping me to understand, what do you mean when you say self? Who is this self? What do you mean when you say reality? When you say reality, what are you talking about? And is it possible that reality is something that we conjure here as vessels and conduits of the divine, if we have the capacity to somehow in the moment through practice disavow the strong gravitational, literally, pull of the material? Often in my wife, we have a young son, as you know, and I see flashes of the archetype. I see how she is governed by what I suppose Richard Dawkins would call natural processes, but I see beyond that. I see the light that shines. I see behind the behavior, behind the biology. I feel the resonance that she is redolent with the spirit of the ancestors. What is it that I am to revive? How is it that I will continue to incline towards this ancestral greatness? What is the duty, and how might the power of Logos impact reality differently than force?
You've detailed out your subjugation to the land of whim, let's say. And now you have this podcast, you have a public presence. You've been vouchsafed that.
This is your podcast. I'm in your podcast right now. This is your podcast. So now we're getting somewhere. When it becomes an absolute amorphous podcast where the father and son don't even know, because the spirit is so abundant and all immersive that we don't even know who's Moses, who's the Pharaoh, who's Jesus, who's the serpent. Now we're getting somewhere, baby.
You're investigating and exploring, and that's the answer to the question about amorphous identity. It's like the people who push forward the notion that identity is fluid. That's the case if you're progressing forward in exploration and trying to expand your domain of responsibility, let's say.
with words. I'm trying to generate community. I'm trying to use language to create common unity, to instantiate and realize an inherent and already existing connection, and that we live individually and collectively in a super state of potentiality, that it is he has no hands but ours, that we are here to formulate his kingdom, that, as we have already referenced, that we are his apostles, that this is our duty. Now, this kind of active awareness, this kind of active presence, making ourselves, as I try in the rosary, to imagine the vibrant nothingness, to feel the vibrant nothingness, and here within the vibrant nothingness is the Sacred Mother, and it is her that I petition that she may convey to her Son the God that she grew in her belly, that I pray to be forgiven, but not me as an individual, but me just as one more sheep, just as one more member of the flock. If I can overcome the appurtenances of my identity that I have been adorned with and self-adorned, that I have ornamented endlessly, that with the brush lent to me by the culture, with the lacquer that I've squeezed out of every gland, applied to fortify this shibboleth of self, if I can somehow overcome that, and where might I overcome it but in the present? Where but the present? Where but the as you say, the message of Christ, the absolute refusal to use force, that the higher will might be engaged, that the higher purpose might find its fulfillment.